Blueberry pie. The messenger of Allah said, when you look with joy at your son, it is recorded for you as a boon, and when you look with joy at your daughter, it is recorded for you as a reward. Begin with daughters, for Allah Almighty is gentle and mild toward them. Sa'ad ibn Abu Waqqas. Transmitted by Dilmi. The whole family of Ahmad liked to go out to Bear Mountain. Usually it happened twice a year, at the beginning and the end of summer. This time they decided to hike up to the summit on a new trail. They left the car in the parking lot and walked up to a large wooden board with a map. Here's the green trail, Dad pointed to the map. There was a green dotted line on it. It'll take 2 or 3 hours to get up. It says here that the trail is quite steep in some places, Ahmad said. He read it on the back of a sign. We'll take our time climbing, his mother interjected. She turned to her youngest son. When you get tired, tell him we'll stop and rest. Okay, said Saeed. What about you? She turned to her daughter. No problem, Fatima said cheerfully. The girl was sure she could easily make it up the ascent. She knew the route. Last year, we had climbed the green trail with Jamila's family. We made it all right. And now I know where the blueberry grows. I love blueberries, said dreamily stretched out. We took some snacks with us, said Dad. Maybe someone is hungry. We have oranges. I'd rather eat blueberries, Fatima said. She smiled understandingly. Shall we go then? Said hurriedly. Okay, said Dad, but first listen to me. Remember what our waymarks look like. He pointed to a round metal disc of green nailed to the shield. When you see one of these discs nailed to a tree, you know you're on the right track. Do not deviate to the side. Let's climb without losing sight of each other. If anyone gets lost, stay where you are and wait. Ahmad, help me put on my backpack. And you get some water. Everyone filled their canteens with water from the spring and started climbing. At first, the trail was gentle. It went through a pine forest. Under the pine trees it was cool and smelled of pine needles. Then the trail crossed the creek and split in 3. Red discs marked one route, white discs marked another, green discs marked a third. Well, where shall we go? Dad asked. The green one, said Saeed. On the green road as planned, Fatima reminded her companions. Ahmad went straight to the right path, without any further ado. All right, agreed Papa. In 10 minutes the pine forest was over. The path dipped downward and then went upward. There were no more pine trees here, but deciduous trees. The trail climbed steeply upward. It's a rough section, warned Fatima, who already knew the way. The trail wound up the slope in a loop. Everyone was out of breath. Ahmad went ahead and Mother and said lagged behind. Ahmad, shouted Dad. Wait for us. Ahmad stood still waiting for the others to come. He drank from the flask. They were all panting and thirsty. Let's take a little break, said Dad. Everyone sat down on the stones except Ahmad. He remained standing. Is it long? This stretch? Said asked. The boy was panting and his legs were already tired. It stretches as far as... Fatima was eager to begin, but when she caught her mother's reproachful glance, she immediately corrected herself. It's not far now, my dear. It's not far. Darling, said Mother to said. Here, have some water. Daddy handed out traveling supplies, nuts, raisins, and chocolate. Bismillah, he said. This will give us strength. After a snack, they continued on their way. Ahmad walked ahead, and his mother asked him to slow down. Before the steep climb ended, they stopped for another break. Ahmad wanted to walk faster. In his mind, he was already on top of the mountain. Dad and Mother were quite happy with the unhurried ascent. The scenery around them was wonderful. They couldn't get enough of it. Said wanted to walk slowly, but he was afraid to admit it. Fatima couldn't wait to get to the blueberries. I hope the berries are still there, she thought. They couldn't all have been picked. She remembered that the blueberry begins just after the cliff. An hour later, they came to the cliff. The top was flat, with a steep edge. The cliff towered over the entire valley, with a small town visible in the distance. How beautiful! Mom marveled. Let's stop here, said Dad. He took off his backpack and got some oranges. They came in handy. The stones were heated by the sun, a cool breeze was blowing, and the sun was beating down. 2 hawks were soaring over the rock, circling. Everyone was fascinated by the place. Even the tiredness seemed as pleasant and sweet as oranges. The sun was warming tenderly, and the view was wonderful. Subhanallah, said Dad. Alhamdulillah, said Mother, for the oranges and all this beauty. God really is the perfect creator, said Ahmad. There it is, the blueberry. Fatima shouted and stopped. Now she was following Ahmad. She bent down, but there were bushes of blueberries without berries all around. All the berries had already been picked. Oh no! The girl exclaimed. She almost cried. She so wanted to taste the berries with everyone else. And now it was all upset. We're out of berries, she grieved. It's okay, honey, her mother tried to comfort her. I found one, said Said. He picked a small berry which had survived from the edge of the ravaged bush. Hey! Come here! Ahmad called. He stepped off the path to the side and bent over repeatedly. There are a lot of them here. Fatima's heart twitched. Papa, she called out, give me the bag. Daddy took off his backpack and took out a plastic bag. I want to pick some berries for the pie, Fatima said. Papa, now Said was eager to share his find with the others. The blueberries are so big here. Said wandered between the trees up the path, almost hidden behind the trunks. Wait for us, don't go far. Dad shouted to him. We are coming. He turned to Ahmad and his wife. Naila, look after Ahmad. And I will be with Fatima, and said. Mom waved her hand in response, okay. The bushes around Said were full of berries. Wow, said Daddy as he stroked Fatima on the head. Here it is. Your blueberries. The girl sparkled. Not bad. He said to Said, who had already gathered berries in the hem of his shirt. They had been picking berries for a long time. Fatima was full of blueberries and took them with her. She doubted whether there were enough for the pie. So she decided to ask her mother. Papa, she said. I'm going to my mother's. All right, said Daddy, just don't go off the trail. I won't, Fatima promised and walked back to where Mother and Ahmad were. On the way, on her left side, she came across a bush covered with berries. You can't leave those behind, she thought, and started picking berries. She moved quickly from bush to bush. After about 20 minutes, Saeed got bored. He was full of berries. His face, hands, and shirt were covered with blueberries. Tell you what, said Dad. Let's go on up to the top. We'll wait there for the others and get the food ready while we do it. Dad and his little boy went back to the trail. Looking down, Dad shouted. Naila! Naila! A minute later, Mom showed up at the bottom of the trail. We're going to the top. Dad shouted. Mom only heard the word summit. What? She said. We're going to the top. Dad shouted. All right. Mom replied. Look after Fatima. Dad shouted. Mom turned to Ahmad, who was walking between the trees. What did he say? She asked him. He seemed to shout, we're going with Fatima. Good. Mom then responded and waved to Dad. Said and his father began to go upstairs. Let's get the bag and go upstairs too, said Mother to Ahmad. Fatima, meanwhile, wandered into a low place. The blueberries here were very large. She quickly filled the bag to the top. Now there were enough berries for a pie. She put the last berry in her mouth. I guess it's time to go back, she thought. She looked around. Which way? To the right? Left? Where did she come from? Mama, she shouted. Papa. She listened, but heard only the rustling of the wind. She felt a queasy feeling in her stomach. Mama. There was no answer. Her lower lip trembled. She knew she was going to burst into tears. She glanced at the bushes around her. They were all exactly the same. Fatima looked at the ground. Her footprints were imprinted on the damp soil. I went downhill, she told herself, trying not to panic. So the bushes became thicker, and the ground became damp. Fatima followed her footsteps and soon made it out of the valley. Around her the trees rustled quietly with their leaves. Mama, she called out. Daddy. Ahmad. They can't leave me, she thought. But why aren't they? Fatima cried. She threw down the bag of blueberries and ran. She ran up the slope, screaming, Mommy! Daddy! Mommy! Daddy! They left her, they left her. How could they have forgotten her? Fatima ran, unable to see anything around her. She caught her shoelace on a limb and fell, hitting her knee painfully and scratching her hands. Suddenly the strength left the girl. She sat down on the ground and groaned in pain. One hand was bleeding. She clasped the spot with her other hand. Her knee hurt. What was it? Why had she been abandoned? Fatima began to sob vigorously. Abandoned by all, alone in the forest, she sat crying loudly, swaying from side to side. Said, and his father had already climbed to the top. Dad took the jackets out of his backpack. The wind was blowing hard, and it was cooler here than on the slope. There were no trees here, only bare rocks. There was a broad panorama from here in every direction. Let's get everything ready before they come, Dad suggested to his son. Look for stones to press the tablecloth in the corners. On the way back with the stones, Saeed saw his mother approaching. Hello, Mum! He shouted. We are the first. Then Ahmad came too. Where is Fatima? Said asked. Where is Fatima? She is with you, said Ahmad. No, she is not. She is not with you? Papa asked as he got up. No, you shouted that you were taking her with you, said Mummy with concern in her voice. I yelled for you to keep an eye on her. She went to you, said Dad. We missed her. Mom exclaimed. Dad quickly packed her backpack and slung it over her shoulders. She must be all right, he said. She's probably downstairs, picking blueberries. Let's go. Let's go find her. Meanwhile, Fatima had gradually fallen silent. She swayed, looking at her hand. Oh, she sighed. Tears rolled from her eyes again. The abrasion on her arm was shallow, but there was a great deal of dust on it. Blood showed through the sleeve of her shirt. Fatima touched her knee. It was swollen and sore. She started to sob again, but stopped. I must find a path, she thought. If I find the trail, I'll find them. She struggled to get up and tried to walk, but every step was a sharp pain in her knee. She sat down on the trunk of a fallen tree. Daddy, she shouted as hard as she could. There was no answer. She prayerfully folded the palms of her hands. Allah help me, she said. I am lost. Fatima was very frightened, but she was also angry. She was angry that she had hit her knee, that she had scratched her hand. But most of all, she was angry at herself. Why did I get lost? She reasoned. Because of my greed. I wanted more blueberries. Tears came to her eyes, but she immediately wiped them away. They will come and find me, Fatima thought. I am their daughter. The tears welled up again, and again she wiped them away. You just have to be patient, the girl urged herself. Allah won't let me get lost. Then another thought occurred to her, maybe I really am lost, and it's my own fault. I got lost, and they probably don't even want to look for me. Fatima immediately dismissed the thought. No, she told herself. I just need to be patient. But how can you be patient if you're lost? Maybe something to do in the meantime? Fatima looked at her hand. She unbuckled her belt and pulled out a flask of water. Taking off the lid, she began pouring water on the abrasion. The wound immediately hurt. The sharp burning even took Fatima's breath away. With the edge of her t-shirt, she carefully cleaned the wound. Her hand still ached, but it was clean now. Her knee ached and her arm hurt, but strangely, Fatima felt better. She sang the song they had learned at school. She thought it would lift her spirits. The song was an old one. It told of how the Prophet, may peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, came to Medina. Fatima sang with exhilaration. She was feeling better and better. When the song was over, she cried out, "Mama! Papa!" Then, listening to see if there was an answer, she would start singing again. Fatima decided she would sing the song 2 or 3 times. Then she would howl and listen to see if there was an answer. And so on until she was found. In the meantime, her whole family had come down to the border where the blueberry bushes began. Here's what we're going to do, Dad said. Saeed, you stay on the trail. Ahmad will stand in the woods, 20 paces from the trail. You and Saeed must see each other at all times. Naila, you will go farther into the woods and stand 20 paces from Ahmad. And I will stand even farther away from you. We must not lose sight of each other. We will walk slowly down the path in a chain. I will call for Fatima. Everyone must be quiet so we can hear when Fatima calls out. So they did. They lined up and started slowly down the path. Dad called out loudly to his daughter, Fatima. And she was still sitting on the fallen trunk. She was finished with the songs. Now she began to recite from the Quran by heart. She decided to recite everything she remembered. It's not so bad to get lost, she thought. Now she was sure she would be found. Fatima finished one small surah and shouted, "Mama! Papa!" There was no response, and she began another surah. And suddenly, Fatima. She fell silent. Yes, there it was again. That's my father's voice. Papa, cried Fatima. She stood up, leaning against a tree. Fatima, came the voice again. Stay where you are. We are coming. Papa's voice came fainter and fainter. Suddenly, he appeared in the midst of the trees. Fatima burst into tears. Daddy ran up to her. Are you all right? There is blood on your shirt. I'm fine, she said with difficulty between 2 sobs, and she pressed her face into Daddy's chest. He crouched down in front of her. Sit, he said. He sat her down on the trunk of a tree and put his arms around her. Where does it hurt? Fatima showed her hand. Then her mother came running up. She hugged her tightly and sat down beside her, wiping away her tears. Ahmad and Said appeared from behind the trees. Honey, Mom said, we were so afraid. My mother had tears in her eyes. Let me look at your hand. What happened? I fell, Fatima said. Ah, my girl, Mama exclaimed. You're all right now. And Papa and I didn't understand each other. I thought you were with him, and he thought you were with me. You are lost, dear child, said Papa. I know, Fatima said guiltily. I didn't think, I found blueberries, and she cried again. And now I've lost everything. Her mother put her arms around her daughter. It's all right, my girl, it's all over now. Don't get upset, kitten, said Daddy. You made a mistake. Inshallah. It will be a lesson to you. Daddy pulled out a first aid kit. Mom washed and bandaged Fatima's arm. Then the girl told them about her knee. Dad rolled up her pant leg and examined her swollen knee. He touched the swelling and tried to see if the leg bent. It looked like a serious injury. Fatima could not walk on her own. "I'll carry you," Papa said firmly. "We must hurry to the city to show your knee to the doctor." Mom put Fatima on her father's back. Ahmad took the backpack. The way back down took them a long time. Dad had to stop and rest many times. Finally they got to the car. When they got home, Dad dropped everyone off except Fatima. He immediately took her to the hospital. An X-ray was taken of her bruised knee. The doctor said she was fine, but she shouldn't move for a while. She would have to stay home for 2 or 3 days. They returned home late at night. When Dad carried Fatima into the house, they immediately caught the delicious smells from the kitchen. It was like grilled chicken. And there was something else. As they sat Fatima down, Daddy deliberately sniffed the air noisily. "I smell blueberry pie," he said with a smile. After dinner, there was a sweet treat. Fatima was seated in a special chair because of her leg. Her outstretched leg, it was quite sore, was placed on a cushion. "The pie was a success," said, praised him. "It certainly was," said Ahmad. "It could have been better," said Papa. He looked at Fatima. "I don't think we shall ever have to work so hard for a piece of cake again,"